My name is Helen Herbert, and I am a senior at Michigan State University studying psychology with plans to attend graduate school for social work. I secured an internship with the Capital Area Response Effort this summer, which is a program that advocates for victims of domestic violence. It gave me my first experiences working directly with victims of domestic violence, especially female victims, and piqued my interest in the area of domestic violence, in particular the ideology behind using violence as a tool to assert power. According to LL-MSW Erica Schmidl, Advocacy Coordinator of MSU Safe Place, domestic violence has been defined as a pattern of power and control that one person exercises over another in an ongoing, intimate relationship. Although anyone regardless of race, age, class, gender, or sexual orientation can be a perpetrator, statistics released by the FBI state that every day about 4 women, or approximately 1,400 a year, die in the United States as a result of domestic violence. In fact, as Schmidl continues, 85 to 95% of recorded cases of domestic violence are men abusing women, while only 5 to 15% of cases concern women abusing men. Statistics released by the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence report that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime, and that domestic violence causes more than 18.5 million mental health visits a year. Violence by men towards women is termed gendered violence and pertains that a man's need to bodily harm a woman stems from the imbalance between men and women. A common misconception about domestic abuse is that the abuse is caused by anger. Though anger is a factor in domestic violence, it is not a cause. Domestic abuse is caused by a need to assert power and control over another person. Susan Shaw and Janet Lee discuss this in their book, Women's Voices, Feminist Visions, by explaining that violence by men is a power issue and must be seen as related to masculine dominance in society generally as represented in interpersonal relationships and in the control of political systems that address crime and create policy. Scholars emphasize that these behaviors are also connected to the backlash or resistance to the gains made by women and other marginalized people. Some men have not responded well to the gains made by women, and thus respond with anger and feelings of powerlessness and insecurity. In essence, abusive behavior is an act of proving dominance over a submissive. For the batterer, this can reassure their self-esteem and prove their manhood. Since physical and verbal abuse is used as a tool to assert power and control over their partner, domestic violence is considered a learned behavior. This can be learned through personal experience, observation, culture, family, and the local community. Abuse is not caused by mental illness, anger problems, genetics, drugs, stress, and absolutely is never because of the victim. No one deserves to be battered. The power and control wheel, distributed by the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence, further illustrates the tactics used by batterers to gain power and control over the victim. Here it is. As shown, tactics on a broad scale include physical and sexual abuse, and then are further exacerbated by coercion and threats, intimidation, emotional and psychological abuse, isolation, minimizing the pain, victim blaming, using children and finances against the victim, and using male privilege for justification for violence. So what can be done about domestic violence? The Violence Against Women Act of 1994 is a federal law of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 that was signed by President Bill Clinton. The law put $1.6 billion towards investigating cases of domestic abuse and prosecuting the accusers. The law also offers protection for male victims, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. Recently, the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013 was passed and signed by President Barack Obama, which offers further protection for victims as well as a special segment aimed towards giving protection to victims who live on Native American reservations. As President Obama said, all women deserve the right to live free from fear. To help survivors of domestic violence see the disparities between a healthy and unhealthy relationship, the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence created an equality wheel. This wheel shows that in a healthy relationship, trust, partnership, honesty, and fairness all contribute to an equal relationship. Survivors who live in fear of their partners have the option of attaining personal protection orders. This pamphlet, distributed by the Michigan Department of Community Health, explains what a personal protection order is and how to attain one, and how they are used. Here is an example of what a personal protection order in Michigan looks like. This particular form is the one used by the 30th Judicial Circuit Court and used in Ingham County. As shown, the perpetrator is prohibited from any contact with the victim. Once the personal protection order is validated, the victim will carry this form with them at all times. Personal protection orders for Ingham County can be given for 3 months, 6 months, and upward to 3 years depending on the severity of the violence and risk factor for the victim's life. Violating a personal protection order can result in severe legal penalties. As stated before, abuse is a learned behavior, not an anger management problem. Couples therapy is not recommended since that would place responsibility on both people. Anger management workshops are also not recommended because the problem at hand concerns the need for power and control, not anger. However, voluntarily or court-mandated, batterers can attend batterer intervention programs that typically last 26 weeks and focus on accountability and confronting victim blaming and denial. Completion of such programs do not guarantee an end to violent behaviors, but have been shown to be helpful. The program I interned for, the Capital Area Response Effort, is a federally funded program that works in tandem with the local police departments, the Lansing Police Department, Lansing Township, East Lansing, Michigan State University Police Department, and the Meridian Township Police Department. When an arrest is made, care workers are dispatched to the residence of the victim to provide empathy as well as distribute community resources to help the victim. We also provide court advocacy and help with legal assistance. Right here I have an example of community resources that are typically handed to victims. As you can see, we have resources for shelter and transitional housing, food, jail numbers, court numbers, substance abuse, batterers intervention programs, counseling and emotional support, and pregnancy services. Domestic violence is unnecessarily and can be stopped, but knowledge needs to be spread. Thank you for watching this presentation. Information provided during my presentation included from the resources the ncdv.org, futureswithoutviolence.org, whitehouse.org, the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence, ncdvs.org, Capital Area Response Effort, a presentation by Erica Spadell of MSU Safe Place, Personal Protection Order Office of Lansing, Michigan, Women's Voices, Feminist Visions by Susan Shaw and Janet Lee, National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and the Michigan Department of Community Health. If you are interested, please check online to find more resources. Information is out there, so go find it. Thank you again.